Hello, all my beautiful brothers and sisters. So today I wanted to discuss something I've been planning to do a video about for quite a long time and haven't done it yet. And Spirit is telling me that it's time to do this, that it's very badly needed. So in elevating myself to this higher vibration and turning on my connection with God, my direct connection with God, where He provides me downloads and messages and shows me what's happening behind the scenes that I don't see, so that I'm always prepared for what's coming. To get to that elevated place and that high vibration where your third eye is activated, your crown chakra is on, it's a process that you build up to get there. And I'm giving you, making these videos, it's my intention to give you sort of the roadmap to get there. And there's various ways you can do that too, as I understand it. But all I can do is give you the testimony of how I was able to achieve that. So, one of the things I initially did after, I removed all the toxicity from my life, the ex-narcissist, the breaking ties with him, of course, was critical. The drug addictions, of course, have got to go before anything, any addiction you have. And that's not really true, not any addiction. The really hardcore addictions have got to go, though. I'm still smoking, and he's still elevating me, so, but I'm sure I'm gonna hit a ceiling with that soon, too. So I'm certainly trying to quit. I'm almost there. I'm just reluctant to give it up because, I still want to be a rebel, and it's like my last little vice that's left, my last little vestige that I want to hold on to. But I know it's not good for me. I know it doesn't fit with God's divine purpose with me, so it's going to have to go. I know that. I'm just kind of holding out, and it's stupid, really. It's just totally stupid. But anyway, hopefully I'll be rid of that in a week or so, maybe even tomorrow, who knows. But anyway, we do the best we can. That said, one of the first things, though, that I did in my process, in my journey, my journey to getting to my divine alignment connection with God, the content on television, in media, in music, all of that affects us. Whether you realize it or not, it does affect us. And there is so much negativity out there in the media that we absorb, whether it be on the news, whether it be in movies, in your Netflix series. It's just everywhere. It's so proliferated with violence and negative sin and just negativity abounds. People all... we're celebrating shit where people have a bad attitude and want to one-up each other all the time. Think about like Real Housewives and, all of those spinoffs of that. There's so many of them, I can't even keep track of them. It's that, and then there's the Kardashians and all about money and, money. It's never ending. And I see through all that now. I've seen through it for a long time, actually, to be honest with you. Even in my darker states, I could see, that media was going very, very dark. from where it used to be when I was growing up, in the 80s and 90s particularly. It's just gotten worse and worse and worse. And there's such a mass of media out there now. They just bombard us with it. I mean, how many more shows can you come up with? And it's like all these ideas have been done. They're just redoing everything over again, in a darker format, too. It's just ridiculous. It's absurd the amount of stuff we have to surf through to find a decent program to watch. And that's deliberate. That is, if you don't realize that, you're probably on the wrong channel right now because I'm not going to go through all that. You should, you know, you should have more of a discerning mind than that to even be watching my videos. I think that should be apparent to everybody that's on here. But that said, I'm not so sure that the younger generations I don't know that they realize how dark everything has gotten because they weren't around when I was growing up. They weren't even born yet. Most of them weren't. So, this is me looking at it from a perspective of, I'm 59 years old now, and this is looking over a whole lifetime here, and it's very easy to see that when you've had decades and decades and decades to watch it progressively go darker and darker and darker. It's not so easy when I used to be like, is this younger generation just not very intelligent or what? And I'm not saying that at all because you're actually very intelligent. It's just that you don't have the perspective of a long 6-decade span of time to look back and realize that everything, they do it all so incremental that they hope that we don't notice. And, I'm standing at a taller pillar of knowledge and wisdom of life lived, and life lived, that is intelligence, okay? That is real intelligence. You've been through the trials, you've been through the hard knocks, you've been through the pitfalls, and I just want to pass on the wisdom of that to the younger generations, and in hopes that maybe you will listen to me and not think that you know everything about everything because you're 25 years old, because you don't. Okay, you don't have the wisdom at 25 of someone who is almost 60. You just don't. It's not possible. Now, granted, you may have a lot of book intelligence and you may, know lots more facts than I do from being on the internet and growing up with all that information. But you don't have the school of hard knocks. And that is where you learn the valuable lessons of life, is just by living them. And, if you're smart like I was, because I was smart when I was younger. I was on the right path when I was younger. I got derailed off the right path later in life, but when I was in my 20s and stuff, I was smart. I hung out with people that were 10 years older than me when I was in my 20s. Most of my friends were in their very late 20s to early 30s. When I was 23, 24, they were 34. They were 35, My late partner that passed away, he was 8 years older than I was. And I gravitated towards people that were older to hang out with because I wanted knowledge. I wanted to know what they knew. I wanted my own apartment. I wanted to know how to get that. I wanted to grow up fast, really, but it was more like I just fit in with them. because I had already been through so many trials and tribulations that I was put through in high school, and struggling, with coming out of the closet and my sexuality and all that stuff like that. I had just been through all of those rough things at such a young age. I mean, I came out of the closet when I was not even 18 yet. I was 17. Um, and I mean, I know nowadays y'all don't think anything about that. But back then, that was a big deal. Most people didn't come out of the closet until, this is more wisdom, they didn't come out of the closet until they were in adulthood, for sure. Probably late in college to even later than that in life. Most people I know, anyway, didn't come out when they were that young. Um, but I hung out with the people that I work with. They were, 24, 25 when I was 16 and 15 and stuff. So, at my part time job. And, so I always gravitated to people that were around 10 years older than I was. And they just sort of accepted me like I was one of their own. And, they said that I was always one of the most mature younger people that they'd ever met. And, and I pride myself on that, actually. I really do. But, it was the wisdom that I gained from them. I avoided, I think, a lot of traps that I saw a lot of my peers getting involved in and whatnot. And, I did that through hanging out with people that were older than me. So there's something to be said about that. Anyway, not to preach too much. But back to the media thing again. I'm all over the place today. I'm sorry. There's so much warfare and chaos going on right now around me. You can't even imagine. And we'll talk about that another time. But so pardon me for being all over the place. But the media. So when I was growing up, though, and younger, things were not digitally made. Things had real people in them, and they had, special effects were a big deal and had to be simulated, so there had to be more heart and soul put into making a movie. They didn't just spit out movies every 3 months, every month for that matter nowadays. It was it was a big deal. And, you went to the movie theater to see a movie where you're focused on the movie. And, I lived at the movies. That was like my escape right there. So, and I learned a lot about life through the movies too, because these movies had heart and soul. These were made by people that had that creative spark directly from God. And it shows in these movies, in the movies from the 80s, 90s, 70s. I love 70s movies. But there are so many movies that are so inspirational to me. And I wanted to pass on some of those titles to you and encourage everybody out there. If you've seen them a long time ago and kind of forgotten about them, you might want to revisit them. You'll recognize most of these titles, actually. And you'll recognize most of the actors in them as well. They certainly have probably aged into, older than me even now. But they're still probably recognizable actors to most of you. And a lot of them you may not know, because there were a lot of really good independent films a few years ago too that you probably may not have ever heard of. So, take a break from, I encourage you to take a break from the current media that's out there and maybe revisit some of this nostalgic stuff. Because these movies are my favorite movies to watch that lift my spirit high, okay? I mean, that send me out of the theater buzzing and, just leave you with this really great uplifted feeling. Now, a lot of them are probably going to be a little dark subjects too, because I tend to gravitate towards serious films, you know, about serious things in real life type stuff. Um, because, you know, it's teaching you something. Not only that, you can relate to it. You know, the more real it is, the more I like it. So, you know, as much as I use movies as an escape, I didn't really want to escape into Batman and comic heroes and that kind of thing, you know, like they have nowadays, which are, you know, really entertaining, yes, but you know, rather meaningless in the big scheme of things. Um, so you know, don't be afraid of some of my titles that sound kind of depressing, and they may be depressing. Some of them are depressing. Some of them are real life true stories that, and real life can be, you know, real life is sad, man. There's, you know, it's not all unicorns and rainbows out there. So, but you know, these movies pass on wisdom to you, and you'll learn a lesson from them if you watch them. So I just encourage you to give it a try, and please comment back to me. I'd love to hear what you think of these. I'm going to try to put a link to like IMDb in there so you can watch a preview of it and you can read a synopsis on it. Um, and as well, well, we'll do another one about music, but let's just do movies for now. So I'll put about 10 titles out there. They're some of my favorites, and I'd love to hear your feedback about them, okay? All right. Trying to be a little lighter today, okay? All right. um, thanks so much for tuning in. Love you guys. All right. We'll see you soon. Okay, bye.